Michele is running to be the next North Carolina State Superintendent of Public Instruction to end the radical agenda of poisoning our children's minds and dividing our state. She has a plan to make North Carolina schools the best in the country, an example of the rest of the nations to follow. Our next...
Sounds good, I'll vote for her. Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you for the invitation to come and for everybody that came out today. Yes, I am running to be in charge of all of our schools because I think it's time for somebody to be a firewall between DC and what's happening here in North Carolina. I don't know if you guys know this, but less than 25% of our 8th graders on the national scale are considered competent in math, reading, or in science. We cannot continue this trajectory. We will not have people that can be future leaders, future business owners, future doctors, future elected officials, even future parents who are able to handle the stresses of adult life. I believe that right now, the public school system in the United States of America is the largest threat to our constitutional republic that exists. Because we're not telling our children the truth about world history, the truth about U.S. history, the truth about biology, the truth about economics, and the truth about their responsibility as a future adult. And they are responsible for being hardworking, critically thinking problem solvers, and that's what we need. So my goal is to get in there and to focus on safety, scholastics, and responsible spending. Safety. Right now, I don't know if you guys know this, just a couple of weeks ago, they came out with a report. And since before COVID, violent crime inside of our schools, the reported violent crime, has gone up 60%. That's in less than 4.5 years that it's gone up. Did you know that over 1,500 teachers in North Carolina were assaulted last year on the job? Did you know that over 600 elementary school children were found with weapons on them in the classroom? There is something wrong when an elementary school student feels the need to bring a weapon to school. And I think it's because there is no civility, there's no order, there's no discipline, there are no boundaries right now that are being enforced by the administration. That I'm going throughout the state. This is, I think, the 39th county that I've been in, and I think I'm hitting multiple today, so it's going to go up past 40. So thank you for coming. But
7 counties.
7? Oh wow! I'm at 30. I'm at 45. We're 6. What's happening is I'm hearing from teachers all over that they really can't teach because there's so much chaos in the classroom. There's so many children that are disrupted. So beyond the fact that you have children that many can't speak English, right? You've got the gifted and talented children. You've got the children that have true learning issues, behavioral issues, and then you have the children who are typical learners. How do we expect a teacher to be able to manage all of that academically and also to be able to manage all of the different personalities and behavior issues if when they send a teacher or they send a student down to the principal's office, they get a snack and they get to play a game on the iPad? And that's what's happening. Teachers are being forced to talk to the parents about what's happening with their children, and then you know what happens? The parents are defending the children, okay? So we need a code of conduct. We need for staff, for students, and for parents to understand this is how we are going to conduct ourselves in the public school classroom, and this is what the consequences are going to be. So when something does happen, you're not blamed for being racist, or you're a bigot, or you're whatever it might be, but you just don't like my child. We will sign this at the beginning of the year. This is what I'm going to propose to all of the school boards. Listen, I can't force everybody to do that, except there is something that the superintendent does have, and that's called the power of the purse. Because while the legislature sets the budget for each one of our districts and determines how much money they can be given for the different issues that they have in their district, it is the DPI who actually cuts that check. So I'm going to say, if you do not have a safety plan, if you are not supporting your teachers and creating an environment in the classroom in which teachers can teach and students can learn, then you are not going to get that funding. You need to show us what is your plan. How is this going to be worked out? Because there is no reason why our teachers and our students have to live in constant fear. If we're wondering about their mental health, which is definitely in crisis here, we don't need more counseling sessions and mental health clinics in our schools. What we need is to teach our children that when someone gets out of line, whether it's themselves or it's a peer. There's going to be an adult who's trustworthy enough to come in and to bring back peace and order and to make our schools a place that everyone is excited to be, whether it's a staff or whether it's a student, right? We can do that. We've done that before. The majority of us were raised in public schools, right? So we just assumed that the public school was good enough for us, so it will be good enough for our children or our grandchildren. Well, that's really not true right now, right? Because the difference between what the left wants as a result of public school and what we want as conservative, we're not even shooting at the same wall of a target. The left wants for children to really believe that they are victims, to define themselves and to limit their future based on the color of their skin. They're telling them that the United States is inherently racist, that socialism is the answer to all that ails us. They're telling them that they can change their gender, which is a biological absolute lie. It's not possible. You can't do it. And so we need to start telling our children the truth, and we need to start teaching them how to be responsible for themselves. We are responsible for our decisions. And if you don't learn that when you're a child, you're not going to learn it as an adult. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing on the college campuses that children are starved for a purpose. They are starved for their life to have meaning. So when they see a group out on campus that's all together and they're protesting and they're all united in something, they just go in and they join it because we were created to be in community. We need to create healthy, safe communities, right? Where children have hope and they're excited about their future. There is no elementary school child who should not want to go to school. How many of us loved elementary school, right? It was a fun place to be. Why are we putting these burdens of society on our youngest members? It's not fair to them, and we need to focus on academics. So safety is going to be one. Scholastics, when we are talking about, and that kind of goes hand in hand with spending. So while the U.S. Department of Education, by the way, has no constitutional reason to exist, right? That was not one of the duties of our federal government, but when our state said, when they say, would you guys like some money? We go, oh, money? Yes, we'll take money. Okay, well, if you want the money, then you have to jump through this hoop. Right now, last year's budget for the DPI, for all schools, the 115 districts, was $13 billion, okay? The DPI has failed the last two audits for the 2022-23 school year and the 21-22 school year. And there's now currently $230 million that has been misappropriated that was supposed to go to different classrooms throughout North Carolina, and they haven't accounted for it, okay? That is a huge issue, right? When that is your job, to make sure that our students and our staff have what they need in order to be academically prepared, have character development, and be career ready when they exit out of high school. So I think what needs to happen is we need an external audit. As soon as I get in there, that's what we're going to do. Because I am convinced that we are completely top-heavy in administrative. We're completely top-heavy in these departments that we are forced to have by the U.S. Department of Education in order to get money. I'm going to give you just a little example from Wake County, where Colleen and I are from. In 2022, we received $2.1 million from the federal government. That was our portion for our spending for that year. Do you know that in order to get that $2.1 million, we had to have a Department of Equity and Inclusion in Wake County? And by the way, it's required for all 115 districts to have those departments. We hired 8 people to be department heads because there's all these different things that you have to do with DEI, right? Out of those 8 people, out of the $2.1 million we were given from the federal government, $1.3 million went to salaries. Anybody that is a state employee knows salary is not even the biggest part of what we pay in the benefits package. You add that on, we are paying out of our state funding in our pockets to cover what we're demanded to have from the U.S. Department of Education to get their 2.1. Do you see how this works? We are losing money to be promoting a globalist, racist, sexually explicit agenda from the U.S. Department of Education that's destroying our kids' minds, that's destroying our families, that's destroying our future as a state and as a country. It needs to stop. And we need somebody who's going to be there and say, no more. We don't need your money. That's why we need an external audit, because we need to see what departments, what programs are we funding and have we been funding for decades that cannot prove that they've had a positive impact on either academic success, career development, or career preparedness, or character development. If you cannot prove that you have had a significant positive impact, that department is going away. That program is going away. And when you tell me, oh, we can't fire people, well, I'm sorry, you don't have your department anymore. But you know what? We do have a severe teacher shortage and we need bus drivers. So you are more than welcome to join in and still continue to be part of the educational process. How willing are you to be a servant and to work where you're needed? That's what we need to be examining. Right? Because we know teachers don't go into this because they want to be wealthy. They go into this profession because they love teaching and they love students and they want to see people reach their absolute potential. And that's not happening right now. So we need an absolute change at the leadership level. You might have heard that the superintendent really doesn't have any power. Well, that's what my opponent has been going around and telling everyone when they go to their principal and they don't get a response, when they go to their school board and they don't get a response, where do they come? They come up to the superintendent's office. And I have been around this state for the last 3 months, actually for the last year and a half, going with PEP. And what people say is, when this is the response that we get, and they will show me an email from Truett's office. It's the same thing every time, every single time. I understand that this is troubling to you. I know that this is hard. I know that your student is suffering, blah, blah, blah. And then she says, I really can't do anything about it. That's not my job. I don't have that power. The legislature hasn't given me that. It's really the State Board of Education's fault. You know, it's this person's fault. It's that person's fault. We have to do this. You know, this is the rule. I have to live by this. I tell you what, when you don't have the gavel, you have the microphone. And you have the bully pulpit. And I'm going to handle this as a Christian. This is what you do as a Christian. When you have a problem with someone, you go to them directly. And if they don't listen, you bring in somebody that's going to be a witness. And if they still don't listen, you bring it before the congregation. And that's what's going to happen in my department. If there is something that there is a problem, I'm going to say, listen, I'm going to find the person that we need to talk to, and we're going to talk about this together, and we're going to get this fixed. No more passing the buck. The buck stops with the Chief Education Officer of North Carolina. And if you don't want that job, Ms. Truitt, I don't know why you're running for it. Because if you aren't willing to solve problems and be somebody that's going to help our families and our children, then step aside and let somebody else have it. I don't care what people call me. I was never planning on doing this to begin with. But my thing is, I'm not here to do this for the rest of my life. I said, I want to make so many significant changes in the next 4 years. It's going to take them 20 years to undo it and get back to where we are right now, right? You don't get into an elected position only making decisions based on getting reelected, right? I don't care. I'm going to do the job that's in front of me when I'm there, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability for all of the families of North Carolina. So we need safety, we need scholastics, and we need fiscal responsibility. In my opinion, all funding needs to start at the classroom level instead of the other way around, and we just let all of the crumbs trickle down onto our boots on the ground staff that are the ones day in and day out training up the next generation of adults. Because remember, we're not raising children, we're raising adults, right? That's what we want them to be. We want them to be productive. We want them to be hopeful. We want them to know all of you are unique. You were created in God's image, and there is something about you that is special, that is unique, and we need you to develop that talent, to develop that skill, to be that person in the community to enhance all of our lives, right? This is not just about us. This is about your responsibility as a citizen of the greatest country in the history of the world. And they're going to know civics. We're going to teach civics. I was just at a great meeting the other night with Dr. Ben Carson. And I don't know if you've heard of the American Cornerstone Project. That's what he started when some strange things happened in 2020 and President Trump was not able to be in the White House any longer. So instead of being the head of HUD, which is what he had been, he decided that he was going to start this. And they have an incredible program for kindergarten through 5th grade, and it's all a civics program to teach about the true history, about how we are supposed to be a nation of the people, by the people, and for the people. Listen, you don't work for me. If I get in this position, I work for you. That is what civil service is about. We are supposed to go to the people and say, what decisions do you want us to make? Because government's #1 role is to protect the liberties of us as individuals, right? These are God-given rights. You know, I fought tooth and nail for this parental rights bill. And what I did is, I don't know if anybody was at the GOP convention last June, I wrote a petition and I wanted everybody to sign it. So I copied 100 copies and I passed them out to all of the counties. I managed to get, by your grace and whoever signed it, over 300 signatures in 4 hours at the NCGOP. And it was not only for the Parental Bill of Rights. As a nurse, I'm very concerned about what's happening to our children medically and psychologically in our schools. I will tell you, I wanted, and I had people sign this petition too, which was to end puberty blockers, hormone replacement therapy, or surgeries. I wanted it to be before the age of 25 because that's when we actually have our full frontal lobe and all of our development is actually finished. But because you can be drafted at 18, they put it at 18. So 18 is better than 0 because most people don't know this. In North Carolina, we are one of 15 states that has 0 age of consent when it comes to anything dealing with STDs, with pregnancy, with at-risk behavior, drug abuse, or with anything now that's considered to be a mental disturbance or an emotional issue. Excuse me. What that means is before we had a parental rights bill, before we had this law about it is illegal to give puberty blockers or hormone replacement therapy or to do surgeries on 18-year-olds, before that time, you could have a student go to a counselor and be put on a telemedicine visit in the office of our schools and to be given hormone replacement therapy or puberty blockers without parents' knowledge. Okay, so when I ran for school board in 2022, I was consistently hated and spit at and threatened and all those fun, tolerant things that the left does, and told that you don't know what you're talking about. This isn't happening in our schools. We're not talking to the kids about their gender. We're not talking to the kids about sex. You're out to lunch. You're homeschooling your kids. I said, well, okay, we'll see. That's November of 2022. February of 2023. I'm at the Senate hearing and I'm testifying about why we need to, have these laws on the books, Parental Bill of Rights, and why we need to protect kids from this, this transgender stuff that's going on in schools. Wouldn't you know? Very same people coming up to the podium. I work in Wake County schools. I'm a counselor in Wake County schools. I've been doing this forever. It is my duty to protect children from abusive parents. Understand this very clearly. We are abusive parents until proven otherwise in the minds of those people. And there right now are people that are losing their children in Maine, in Oregon, in Michigan. Why? Because they refuse to support their child's desire to destroy their bodies in order to become another gender. They're literally, their CPS is being called on them, they're losing their children. And here's why this is so important. They're standing up there and they're saying the exact thing that I was saying, we need to protect our kids, we need to strengthen our families, and this is my take. Teachers have an incredible role in our students' lives because they have a window into our kids that we don't even have as parents, right? Because they're spending 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 9 months out of the year with our kid. So we need their insight. We need their input. If they think that there's something going on with one of our children, we need to know. But you know what? The first call needs to be to a parent. Because if a child is suffering, whether it's academically, whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally, if you think that it's happening at the hand of a parent, it is your legal duty to report it to law enforcement. But if you don't think that that's it, if it's just I'm confused about my gender, or I'm feeling depressed, or I'm feeling anxious, the first call needs to be to a parent. Because if a child is suffering, the entire family is suffering. And we need to strengthen the commitment between teachers and parents to help our children to succeed. Right now, what we're doing is we're destroying that. We're destroying that trust. And we're losing teachers whose hearts are in the right place and who are conservative minded, who want our kids to be healthy and happy and well adjusted. They're leaving because they're being forced to talk about things that go against their worldview and their personal convictions. And that needs to stop, because that is the plan of the left. They want to silence our voices. They want our children by themselves in these schools, and they want us to be paying for them to tell them the lies about history, about themselves, about their families. So we need someone who's going to stand up and say no more. If you want, in my opinion, if you want to have a school that is based on how you feel about your gender, what you want to do behind closed doors with whomever you want to do it, if you believe that the United States is the worst country in the history of the world, that capitalism is evil and that socialism is the answer, start your own private school. Start your own private school, and we'll see how many people pay $10,000 a year for their children to be brought up under that. Because right now, as the U.S. public school system, we need to put American families and North Carolina families first. I don't know if you guys heard about what just happened in New Hanover. 2 weeks ago, the superintendent took it upon himself to work with the U.S. Department of Education to close down a school for special needs students and to create it as a place for illegal aliens to be schooled. I will tell you, this is how this works, guys, when you don't have power. You make a video. You have somebody write an article, you put it all over social media, and 3 days later, that superintendent says, yeah, we're not going to do that. That's how it gets done, right? Don't tell me that I can't tell you. You get the voice of the people to be loud enough that you pressure people into doing the right thing. That's where we are, right? And if you have to be pressured into doing the right thing, then you need to be replaced. And that's the other thing. That's why we have elections. Unfortunately, when you talk about, just one more thing, State Board of Education. The Constitution set forth the State Board of Education. So the way that this works, the Constitution gives our legislature the role of setting curriculum boundaries and budgeting, right, for our schools. So what they did is they created the State Board of Education to be able to manage that throughout the state. And then they created the Department of Public Instruction to help with that, to even break that down even farther. Unfortunately, the Superintendent of Public Instruction is the one role on the Council of State. So it's a statewide position. It's also part of the executive branch of North Carolina. There's just 10 of us that would make up the executive branch. That's important. It's important to have people with conservative values who are fighters, who are going to let you know what's really happening behind the closed doors of the executive branch of North Carolina. But this is the only role that is not completely 100% in charge of their department, okay? Because the State Board of Education, the majority of people on that board are appointed by the governor. And wouldn't you know, lo and behold, they're appointed to 8-year terms. So it's so funny that just in the last couple of months, we've been appointing new people, because I think we're a little bit nervous that maybe we're going to change over leadership, Lord willing, in our governorship. And they don't want these 8-year terms to end up ending right at the end when there's a Republican governor in the House and being able to replace people. But here's how you get around that. The State Board of Education only votes on what they're handed. Okay, so North Carolina legislature sets the law. The State Board of Education sets the policies. So you know what you need? You need really great policy writers that are going to offer them 3 or 4 different options of a policy, and every one of them would be awesome, right? It's like when your kids want a snack, you offer them the 3 or 4 choices that you don't care which one they pick. That's what you have to do with the State Board of Education. You need to have policy writers who are constitutionalists, who have the same end goal in mind of educational excellence and career development and character development. And so that's what I'll do. I'm going to write policies. And here's something that I know for a fact. You guys might not have heard this. Catherine Truitt has just asked Senator Tillis to come down and to have a fundraiser for her in Raleigh. That's right. So instead of being a firewall beyond DC, what's she doing? She's asking DC to come here and you put me back in this role. So she might not have any power, because who's she giving the power to? Exactly right, right? Is that what we want? Do we want DC values to be here in our schools in North Carolina? I don't think so. I don't think so. They don't have any values. And so here's the thing. Here's the problem. She already has a war chest of $250,000. How much more money do you need in a primary to beat little old me? Right? But you know what's going to happen? It's going to be for the next 3 weeks, you're going to see commercials, you're going to get mailers, and she's going to talk about how she pushed really hard for the Parental Bill of Rights. Oh, she was there testifying to, protect women's sports. I'm going to tell you what she didn't do. The Parental Bill of Rights was being discussed in the General Assembly for over a year. When it finally passed in July, because Tricia Cotham, thankfully, came over, became a Republican, gave us the supermajority, we were able to override 5 vetoes that have to do specifically with the educational system, which is excellent for us. Praise to all of the great legislators. You know what she did? She asked for an extension. She said, the schools aren't ready for this. We're not ready to implement it. Can you please wait until January of 2024? So when they voted to wait, you know what happened? There is now a lawsuit from the Southern Poverty Law Center against our legislature saying that this is unconstitutional, to say that parents are the ones who are responsible for determining when their kids and how their kids are ready to hear about sex and talk about gender and all these other things. So she just pushed this back. So now we have a lawsuit. So what's happened? Instead of having those policies ready to go, so that as soon as that law was passed, she could have said, listen, we're having a special session, State Board of Education, because I'm the administrator, chief administrative officer. You determine when they're going to meet, you determine what the agenda is going to be, and you give them the policies that they're going to vote on. Instead of having that on the ready, she said, no, we need 6 months. And you know who she went to find that policy? It wasn't any conservatives. It was the State School Board Association, which is independently owned and is a far leftist group. So we're getting the same policies that they got over in California in order to uphold the new parental rights bill. Okay? So instead of doing what she needed to do and protect our kids, we now are going to have an entire other year of students being in their classrooms. And let me just tell you one more thing about this with the Parental Bill of Rights. It specifically states that we want opt-in sex ed classes for our students, okay? Because it only goes from kindergarten through 4th. That says you can't talk about it at all. But which it should have been to 5th, because that's a whole other topic. But now, above that, they're saying that we don't talk about it until 7th grade, okay? And in 7th grade, it's supposed to be an opt-in class. Do you know that Catherine and her DPI is putting forth the standards, and they want to make it opt-out? Do you know the difference?
Yes.
Opt-out means, well, if the parents don't tell us specifically that they don't want their kids to be in it, maybe if they don't find out that we're doing it, right? When we put it on the, 5th page of an email and you don't know when this class is happening, well, they didn't say anything, so I guess they want it to be taught, right? They're just assuming that, and I will tell you, I was on a very startling class. We have a friend that works with us with the Pavement Education Project, and she's a teacher, and so she is still a registered Democrat, so she gets all the invites to all the fun classes and trainings. And we sat there, Scotland County, right on the South Carolina border. I sat there and listened to them saying how they were so excited because they managed to get something changed from opt-in to opt-out, and get this, there's no little kids in the classroom, so that they can have actual models of a penis in 3rd grade so they can teach them how to put condoms on. They're excited. And she literally says out loud, because when it's an opt-in program, most parents don't sign up for it. So we had to do opt-out and that's claiming that that's going to help with the, with the pregnancy rates and whatnot. Okay, so we need a firewall. We need to protect our children's innocence. Kids only have a few years to not know about all of the horrors and all of the stresses and all of the issues of adult life. Why don't we just let them enjoy elementary school and find friends that have like interests and not be dividing them up by the color of their skin and by every other, genre that we can find. And so this is why I'm doing it, because I'm passionate. I believe that they are purposely destroying our families and they're destroying our future. Because if our children truly believe that they are victims because of the color of their skin, or they're victims because they have some diagnosis, or because, or they are entitled to things because they're simply breathing, that's not what made the United States the country that we are. What do we need our children to do? They need to be problem solvers. They need to be critical thinkers. They need to be able to have civil discourse and logical debate. Those are the things that made us such a great country, right? People that can come to the table with a completely different idea of how something should be done and end up leaving with a path forward that's been a compromise because you found common ground. That's not, you guys have seen it, that's not how the left is operating right now. They don't have the capacity to have a discussion, so it's cancel culture, and it's threats, and it's calling people names, right? And that's what we're teaching our children, and it needs to stop. We will not be free if we continue to allow this to happen to our children. We've already lost a lot of ground. And it's time for us to get our feet dirty, get our hands dirty, and say, this line, the kids are on the front line of this battle. It's time to pull our children off the front line, and for us as the adults to stand up to the front line and say, we're the Tar Heel stand. You can go here and you can go no farther. You cannot have our children. You cannot have our future. And so that's why I'm running. So I would greatly appreciate, I don't know if you guys have, I would greatly appreciate any support that you can give me, or if anybody can stand at the polls during our excessively long early voting of 15 days, because most people know who they're going to vote for president or for governor or for lieutenant governor, but once you get down to that down race ballot, they don't know anything. And if they're going to be inundated in the next 3 weeks with how great Catherine Truitt is, and she's protected families, and she's protected, girls and women's sports, I know for a fact that that's what she's going to be doing, then people aren't going to know the truth. And as I said, I've been trying to go to everything I can possibly go to, but it's not going to be possible for me to get to all 100 counties. I do have great enthusiasm. I have great people who are willing to be volunteering for me, but they need signs. They need, something to hand out. People want shirts to wear, because then it can just be the walking billboard. So I would appreciate any support that you can give to me, and just spreading the word. Tell 1,000 of your favorite friends that they need to get out and vote, and so that we can take back our schools and take back our future. Did you want to take questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Anybody would like to ask questions, if you put your hand up, I'll try to do it so everybody can get a chance to ask a question. If you got a second question, we'll go back to you. Louise, you can ask the first question.
I know there's an issue in our county, I'm from Pasco, and I know there's an issue of teachers, okay? There's a shortage and whatever. I have a very good friend that is retired. She's come back because of the shortage, and she is teaching, and she has a help, of course, but she can only work X amount of time, and then after that, she can't work anymore. That's only leaving the aide in the classroom because of the shortage of teachers. But if she even works over or more, it can affect her retirement.
Yes.
Now, that is just,
Well, it's wrong,
if we've
and it
got
needs to be
that
changed.
bad of a shortage in our counties, something needs to be done into the screenings or the whatever. She's willing to come out of retirement. She's willing to teach.
Right.
But she's going to be penalized
Right.
if she does that,
Yep.
and things of this sort. So,
Yep.
not only, she still does the lessons and gives to the aide and things of this sort, but she don't clock it, and she can't get paid for it, or she loses her benefits.
Yep. And that needs to change, and that's going to need to change at the legislative level, but also it changes how it's actually done at the DPI. So what you need is somebody that's in there that says, oh, no, I'm sorry, we need teachers. I will let you know. I was just on a stage with Catherine Truitt last Saturday, and she told everyone in the audience, There is no teacher shortage in North Carolina.
Are you kidding
Well,
me?
I'm
yeah,
telling
she
you.
don't know what she's talking about.
You're exactly right, she
And
doesn't,
whatever.
and you're exactly right. We need to be rewarding, we need to be rewarding people who have
Yeah.
spent their lives trying to raise up the next generation and not discriminating against them to be able to come. I mean, hello, they never got even paid what they were valued during the time that they were working. Why in heaven's name would you be taking away their pension, which that's what everybody's, I mean, right now, everybody's hurting because of Biden inflation, right? And so why would we be, why when we are in such desperate need, do we not want the teachers that have the experience? Because you will be interested to know this. Last week at the State Board of Education meeting, which they're all videotaped, so you can go back and watch them if you're having trouble sleeping, and Catherine stated that there are many elementary school teachers today in North Carolina who are math phobic. They are scared, they don't know how to teach math to elementary age children. This is a severe problem. This is a huge indictment on our school system, or the university system, that's giving somebody a teaching degree that cannot teach math to elementary school teachers. But the answer is, if you just send us more money, it should fix it. So that's the good news. If everybody would write a check to the DPI so that they can actually train our teachers to be able to teach math in elementary school, then we'll all be better. But see, to my point, this is ridiculous. Why, when we have teachers that have been proven educators that have been successful, that want to come back and to continue to invest in our students, they should be getting extra pay because of all of your experience rather than less. So that's come up before, and so the legislature is looking at 2 different laws that are specifically geared at education in the short session. They will be back at the end of April, or the middle of April. So the middle of April until like the end of June, beginning of July, there will be another short session. And there are laws that we're trying to get with excellence in education, and we're trying to get things kind of shoved into these laws that are going to kind of close up some of these holes so that we can move forward. So, but that's a great point, and it definitely needs to be addressed. It will be addressed.
Mary, did you have a question?
I do.
Sorry?
Several questions.
Sure.
I'll get you next. You can go next.
How do you feel about the voucher system?
Yeah.
And if your children or grandchildren are being homeschooled, would you put them back into public schools for your?
I'm about to be a grandma in June. Two of my kids got married this summer. I like to say not to each other. One was in August, one was in July. But I will say this, right now I only have one left at home who's now in 6th grade. Listen, I would have been happy as a clam to send them into the public school and not have to take, not have to live on one salary with my husband and be responsible for everything for my children. But I am accountable first and foremost to God, and with how I raise my children and who I let have an impact into my children's lives. And so that's why I ended up homeschooling. As I said, my kids were in public, they were also in private, and at different times, and for the different kids and what their needs were. So I am 100% for school choice. I'm 100% for money following the child. But this is my caveat. School choice right now, we do not have enough options for everyone that wants a different plan for their student. There are 2 to 3 to 4 year waiting lists to get into charter schools and to magnet schools and to private schools. So this is the problem. The other thing is a lot of private schools are not going to be taking the opportunity scholarships because they know that with it comes an attachment as to kind of curriculum parameters that you must, and part of the reason why they wanted to be a private school is because they didn't want to be under the control of the public school system. I'm 100%, parents should have, they have absolute right and choice for their children for everything, whether it's education, but what we need is we need a very strong public school system, we need a very strong charter school system, and we need a strong homeschool ability and a strong private school so that we truly do have a choice. Because it's not really a choice when your child is suffering and you're just looking for an out. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm 100% in favor of that, And I worked to get the school choice bill passed as well. I was there speaking out in favor of that. But the other thing is, many homeschoolers, just so you know, we don't want our tax money back if it means that there's going to be more controls over how we homeschool in the homeschooling community. Because the homeschoolers are now under what's called the non-public education, Department of Non-Public Education. So there is a department that manages that, and you have to show them your test scores every year and whatnot. But there's a lot more freedom in North Carolina than in a lot of other states. And so people that are veteran homeschoolers are very hesitant for that to be put under the awning or the umbrella of the public school system, and that's kind of what would happen if you're giving them back their funding. So, yeah, that would be my response.
Man,
I have a quick comment and a quick question.
Okay.
I'm glad you say the word civics and constitution.
Yeah.
I have 2 certificates to teach the Constitution.
Fabulous.
I've taught adults, very hard to get in any public schools. I've taught homeschoolers all ages. So thank you for emphasizing that. This is what we need for our children to learn. If you don't know your liberties, you can't protect them.
That's right.
My quick question is, does the state auditor have any influence? You said there wasn't auditing going on in the public instruction.
There is auditing, we've just failed them.
Okay, but if we have a better person as a state auditor, will that be able to work together and will that make a difference?
Yes, absolutely. Yep, we need a solid state auditor, but I'm saying this, I would say even to go outside of the state audit and find an external
Good.
organization that's going to do it that doesn't have any political ties, that's just going to be a completely, completely nonpartisan.
Find one.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I will say, I'm good friends with Dale Falwell, who has done an amazing job as a treasurer, and so I know that he knows people also in and around North Carolina who would be skilled in this.
I kind of like Dingy because he's going to be stingy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dingy's my friend too. Yeah.
Andy?
Yeah, this goes back to what Louise was saying, when she was talking about not having enough teachers and that sort of thing, and not being able to take in retired teachers to make those, fill those jobs.
Right.
So I know this is an instance in our county, Pasco County, where I read recently that they were going back under this first start, is what they called it. And I want to know if there's any disadvantages to that, because what I found happening in some of the schools there is they had openings, they're advertising for teachers, but someone with a teaching degree that might have been retired or just is older was not hired when someone without a teaching degree who was right out of school was hired. And when you're talking about things like they haven't been taught to teach math to elementary students. So if someone with any degree takes that position over someone with a degree who has been taught that, is that some of that problem?
Yeah, some of the problem actually is, it's actually kind of the opposite, because they want fresh teachers to be filling in because they have bought into kind of what the whole agenda is now for this globalist agenda. I don't know if any of your schools around here have on the outside that we are a global school. We are, that's all throughout Lake County. So the teachers that are veteran teachers that have been in the system for 20 or 30 years, they are more of a threat to changing the worldview because they know how school used to be, that most of them love our country, right, and they want that to be taught. So part of the reason why they know that the children believe any adult that's put in front of them. So for first start, are you talking about like preschoolers and whatnot like that program? Or are you talking about trying to get teachers into the?
No, it's something that Pasquotank County, and I can't remember the term for it, went back under, where they have more flexibility.
Okay.
They don't have to follow as many of the guidelines that are normally required, because they put them under this program because they're so low performing. And then they have more leeway as to what they do.
Okay.
I thought it was called First Start or.
So are they
something like
taking
that.
people, you're saying they're taking people that have gotten a college degree, but it might not be in
Be in
teaching?
education.
And I actually think that would be a benefit. Not to not have veteran teachers. I think that we need our veteran teachers to be in there, but I think there is a huge benefit to people that have, and we were just talking, I think the young lady left here and saying, it used to be in the United States and here in North Carolina that you got a degree in something, whether it was math or economics or history or English, you got your degree in that and then you went and got a teaching certificate, right? So you had your expertise in something and then you just learned how to teach it, okay? And so that I think is very beneficial, rather than when we're hearing from our superintendent that the fresh hires coming out of a university system who are instructed in education, right? They're coming out with an education degree, that they're fearful, they don't know how to teach reading and they don't know how to teach math, and they need to go all summer long to these things that they're not paid to go to these trainings to learn how to do that. That's a severe concern to me. And so while I'd have to look into that program and to see, I'm thinking that what they're saying is we really have a need for teachers and we want to, maybe if it's, they're wanting to get people into the system, because what Catherine says is we don't have a pipeline. We don't have a pipeline because people aren't going into education. And so I don't know why they would choose a fresh teacher, somebody that's never taught before over a veteran teacher. Except that if the veteran teacher is not going to be pushing the same, willing to push the same social justice issues and whatnot, that might be why they're choosing that person, that's fresh out of college. Because regardless of what you're taking
He's already been
nowadays,
brainwashed.
right, exactly. But regardless, most universities are pushing kind of this one world order, type of mantra. So they probably figure that they're going to be safer and more malleable maybe into the system. I don't know.
Can you check into those
Yeah,
programs
I will,
that
yeah.
allow schools that are underperforming to come under some other type of?
Yes,
benefits?
yeah, I will.
And see if there's disadvantages.
Okay, I will, yeah, and ask people that are like you guys that have lots of experience. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Did anybody else, she's asked one, does anyone else want to ask one first?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a number of days that a teacher can use a substitute during the year without losing her position? Or does she lose her position at a certain?
I don't know that. I'll have to look at that. I don't know what that is, but I will tell you this, in Wake County, we are so desperate for teachers that we were allowing, I think most of the substitutes are filling full-time roles that they don't have a teacher for, much more so that hasn't come up as a concern, that teachers that are teaching, are spending too much time letting somebody else teach their class.
I know my daughter is a substitute teacher in Jacksonville, and she is not trained. And it ends up being a babysitting situation.
Of course, and I'll tell you, they are now letting new high school graduates serve as substitute teachers. I can't imagine anything that would go wrong with that. We're doing that, and yes, so that, we're in dire straits, and part of what should concern all of us is that our superintendent is saying, we do not have a teacher shortage. We do not have well, if she doesn't even believe that it's existing, you can better believe that she's not doing anything to fix it, right? So.
Yeah, are you saying that the teachers now that are coming out of college, even if they're graduating with whatever, don't have to take the school board anymore?
They do have to take
the state board.
They do have to take the state boards, yes, but the state boards, from what I understand, I have 3 or 4 friends whose kids have, gone through the state boards. We are so short of teachers, people are still teaching, and they're being able to take it 3 and 4 times, but they're teaching in the meanwhile, right, until they can pass that board. So that might be who Truett was referring to as people that are math phobic, right? Like maybe they haven't been able to pass, but they went through the classes. I'm not sure, but all I know is that our children, when we have 8th graders, only 1 out of 4 of them is competent. And this is not accelerated. This is not like off the charts 99th percentile. This is competency. So that's saying 3 out of 4 of our 8th graders should not be going to 9th grade, right? That's why you have an exam at the end of the year to see whether or not you have mastered that level of learning and you're ready for the next grade level, right? We're doing a great disservice, so yes.
The backpack bill or the bottled up money, From what I understand, the money that follows the child is based on the parent's income. There's a sliding scale.
Well, what it is, yeah, I mean, because it's based on what you would be paying in taxes, right? But what it actually is it used to be that if you made under or over a certain amount, that you were not eligible for the Opportunity Scholarship. So what our General Assembly did is they really raised that, they raised that number. So now so many more people are eligible. So I think the Opportunity Scholarships are much more, depending on what district you're in, like if we're allotting $11,500 to every student in Wake County, that's the money that you would get if you are a resident of Wake County. So I think what you're referring to in terms of it's dependent how much money you're gonna get, it's not so much based on how much you make, it's based on what area you live in and how much money has been allotted per student for that county. And it just determines whether or not you're eligible as to what your income is, whether you can even apply for it. Yes.
So, I guess my question is that set by the legislature or is that set by, okay.
Yeah, that was
Because there's also a lottery if there's only a certain number of them allowed.
Yes, well, that's the thing that I've learned in the last year is, so our charter schools are completely on the lottery system. So they do not choose at all what students are coming to their charter schools. So it is completely just by number. So they can be getting, a lot of children that have a lot of developmental issues, or learning disabilities, or they can be getting the cream of the crop, right? But that's really what we get in the public schools too, right? So that does kind of put them on a level playing field. I will tell you this though, the charter schools have something that really the public schools need. The charter schools have a code of conduct and they have expectations. And if you do not follow the expectations and if you're not able to do what you're supposed to do, you get sent back to the public school and that's seen as that's your penalty. You get sent back over here, to the jungle, and you got to fight your way out again. And so, and that's why I'm saying, if we do not have civility and order and discipline in our classrooms, everyone is losing. We're all losing. And that, I think, beyond charter schools or private schools, part of the reason why they're so successful is because they're paying money. The parents are paying money. So you better believe that they have a vetted interest in their kids bucking up and following the rules and doing their best work. And that's what we need across the board, for parents to be engaged, and we need to encourage that strongly.
What would be your position if somebody in the next administration came in and said, let's eliminate the Department of Education?
The U.S. Department of Education, I would be all for it, 100%. But here's the thing, I do not think that we need more bureaucrats making decisions, right? In terms of, I'd like to see a constitutional amendment, we get rid of the State Board of Education, because I think if you have the legislature setting the law, if the superintendent is elected and works under the legislature, knowing that they're accountable to the legislature to oversee the DPI and to oversee and have impact into the superintendents in the 115 districts, I think we would be so much better off because you don't have all these extra people right in the mix that you're paying. So yeah, I tell people, if a congressman is coming and asking for your vote and they're saying, I want to go up and fix education, I would push them on it and say, so you want to control education better from DC? Because if they do, you might want to educate them a little bit and say, let's bring it back down to the states and let us do it. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say a really moral comment that you're right, the best prepared candidate I've seen in a long time.
Oh, thank you.
The first sentence you said is, you said your name and why you were running.
Yes.
And I think a lot of candidates forums, you hear candidates talk about everything except why they're running. They tell you where they went to school, the relatives, they don't tell you why they're running. And you know what you're talking about, you're very well prepared, and I'm very impressed. And I think just for an electability, even if you don't agree with what she said, she's going to be a very strong general election candidate.
Thank you.
And
And I have to say, like, people are, especially the legislators that are jumping on board with Catherine, what I'm hearing is they say, well, we have to keep this seat conservative. Well, I'll say,
Well,
yes,
conservative.
Catherine is not, first of all, but second, she cannot beat Mo Green.
I know that.
Mo Green is right now going to be the Democrat. I mean, he has two contenders that are vying for the Democratic candidacy. But I will tell you, he's a former superintendent of Charlotte. He's a former superintendent of Guilford. And I was on a Zoom call with him a week and a half ago. He believes that CRT is essential in everything between kindergarten and 12th grade. He believes that we need to have safety in our schools by giving more psychologists and counselors and social workers.
No.
Occasionally we can have one or, an officer, but he's against that. And the other thing is he says the same mantra that everybody keeps telling us, if we just had more money, our kids could perform. There's nothing more false about that. You could dump $1 million into every first grade classroom right now, and they won't know how to read, and they won't know how to count it, right? And so that's what I'm saying is she will not call out Mo Green on these things. The NCAE is 100% behind him. The NCAE just had a strike in Durham, right, and closed down the schools for 7 days. They are a completely political, Marxist organization, and he's bragging about the fact that they support him. Catherine will not go toe-to-toe with him and these people that have all of these agendas that they're going to push through when he is in there. And I say this, our party would be better off if a Democrat were the one making these decisions than for it to have been a conservative. Because so many people are leaving the party because they're sick of being told to just vote for the lesser evil. It's done. We're done with people claiming that they're conservatives and not doing anything to protect our party and to protect our good. I'd rather have a Democrat at the helm and we can just tell everybody, bring your kids home and we'll figure out something. At some point. Yes.
The state lottery, when it
Yes.
was first instituted, it was supposed to, the money was supposed to go to schools.
It's not.
What portion of that is going to the schools?
I've heard that it's less than 10% actually at ever.
That is horrible.
It is horrible, yeah. Now, like I said, I haven't looked at that. That hasn't been a line item on the audits, and so that needs to be looked at as well. It's the same thing with casinos.
Let me have your place a minute. We're gonna get one or two more questions, but we're gonna have a recess where all of you can come and talk to her, so we will be taking a recess. And I think Louise has got one more question, and I think you have a question. So we're gonna answer these two,
Okay.
and then we're gonna let everybody talk to you during our recess.
Okay,
If that's
thank
okay with
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
All right, Louise, you take yours, and then you'll take yours.
Oh, you did? Okay. Is she happy?
My question is also, Pasco County, it shows that we get $2,558,102 of the lottery. Now, who has control of that? Our commissioners, our superintendent, or here again, y'all?
I would think that it is the superintendent, I would think it's the county commission.
The county commission.
Yes, the county commission, because although the DPI, as I said, they do write checks, but I'm not sure about the lottery, if that, is that for the entire county, or is that just specifically for schools?
No, that is for our Pasco County. That's the entire county.
Okay.
Is what they get.
Okay, because
And
this is my concern. My concern is that lottery money is going to the entire county, which it was intended to go to the schools. So we need to look and see.
Well, it shows how much of it's supposed to go to each, like for the staff
Okay.
and the pre-K and whatever.
Okay, so
It's all
that's supposed to be just for the
broken down
schools. Okay.
accordingly, but I was just curious if that's left up to our commissioners or not, because we
Well,
can
it should be up to the DPI, because if that is what has been allotted from the lottery for
Yeah.
each thing, I don't know. Catherine's been running around writing big checks to everybody in the last couple of weeks. So I'm gonna have to look into that and figure out whether or
I'll give
not
you
all
a
of
call.
that, okay, and whether all of that is directly gonna come from the DPI, or whether it has to go through the individual school boards and they vote on it, because that's the other thing is, we give money to the boards, we don't give money to the individual schools, so then it's up to the boards to get it to where it's supposed to be. So if you're getting that whole check, but it's not ending up to the pre-K and to the staff and to the, you know, safety or whatever it's supposed to get to, that's going to be a local board issue. But you just need to find out from your board if they actually got that amount of money. And I guess you could tell me. So did you get a check from the DPI for lottery money every year? When you were, yeah, okay, so that was from the DPI. But you're given the entirety of the check, or were you given it in increments to say this one goes toward staffing, this one goes toward, or is it up to you to break it down? Or was it given to you in increments specific to the, do you remember?
He left. I think we get the lump sum, and then we decide how it goes.
Okay, so that they're telling you they get it from DPI and then they disperse it through the board.
All right, Ron, you're a superintendent, right?
No,
No. You're just on the board.
He's on the board.
Okay. Do you know if that's the way it worked when you were in Paxton County?
I don't know.
You do not know?
I do not know.
We're getting ready to have another election for commissioners, and I want to know if to hold them, do I go after their head, or am I supposed to still?
Well, there's a lot you
beat
can
the
go
door
after
of
your
the
county commissioner
superintendent's
for, but
office?
probably not that. Yeah,
It
but,
comes up on their budget.
yeah, but you know what I would do, and I tell people this, if you are going to ask a question of an elected official, always put it in an email. Always write it down. Don't make the question on a phone call, because you need a record of how they respond and if they don't respond.
Unless you tape it.
Yeah, unless you tape it. But I would say, but it's hard to tape what they're saying. But I would say, email your question and say, I have a question, I saw this. Can you tell me what's happening? Who gives you the check? And what you do with it? And is it 100% from the board?
Thank you.
Yes.
Let her speak, please. You got a question, and then we will take a break.
Yes.
When you first started talking, you mentioned, students that cannot speak English.
Yes.
Okay. So their place in the classroom, that's not fair to them, and it's certainly not fair to the other kids that were already there.
Yeah.
If you say English is the law of the land, you're a racist. So what can be done about it?
We'll just be called racist. Because this is, I lived for 4 years in Mexico with my husband. My first 3 kids were born in Mexico. And that's actually how I got involved in politics back in 2015, is the whole border issue. Because I realized this is not kind to people south of the border. But I'll tell you, I have a plan. And what I'd like to see happen is when anyone comes here, whether it's through the border or whether it's through another country, if your student does not have a mastery of the English language, the first year is going to be spent in only English classes. You can participate in sports, you can participate in art and PE and all these extracurriculars, but in terms of core classes, you are going to wait a year until you are competent in English so that then you can enter into that grade level. So people are going to know when they come to the United States that their child, if they're coming and they're in 5th grade, they're going to repeat 5th grade and they'll be with other non-English speakers, and that is going to be the core of what that teacher is teaching. It's going to be English for that first year. And listen, if they do great in a semester, then you can enter into the classes the next year. But it is not fair to our teachers, and it's not fair to these students. They are spending all day on a screen playing games. And the other thing we need to do is we need to open up our schools a few nights a week and partner with organizations that are already teaching ESL to adults and allow the parents to come in and get English learning. I'd be all for naturalization classes as well, while the kids can potentially be getting tutored or have somewhere safe to be, and then teach the parents as well, because the parents, when they can't speak English, that is just also, there's no connection between the teachers and the families in order to help their student. So that would be my take on it. I think we need to recognize that you need to teach, you need to learn English, and we're not going to be using phones to, to talk to each other, yes.
Just a point of interest, Dare County is one of, unless things have changed in the last few years, Dare County is one of only 3 counties in the state that has an official language.
Really?
English.
Really? Oh,
Every damn county ought to have it.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Every county ought to have it.
Yep. Yep.
All right, we're gonna take a 10-minute break. Y'all, please, I want every questioner to answer every one of your questions. So please, you got a few minutes to stay?
Sure.
And just talk with her. But we only have a limited amount of time here, so we'll take care of our business when we come back.